Okay, we'll pause.
Now that, is that?
Set? Yeah, I'll move it back. Tell me when. Or another block under?
No, there's, it's this camera that's on,
Oh,
not that one.
well, golden video.
Yeah, yep.
No, that's not a touch screen.
Yep.
It's all right.
I keep doing that.
Yeah,
You can see where I spend, let's see here. Choices. Sign up HD built in.
There should.
Let's see here.
It doesn't show the camera?
Let me try it again. It doesn't appear to because, let's see, we don't want this garbage out.
Yeah.
Homes. Rooms over background. Effects. So somewhere.
Let me try something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the weirdest thing. That was just working yesterday.
Video effects settings. No, that's just,
See if you can figure it out. I'll be right.
yeah.
They have to replace the crowd.
Yeah, this is the crowd.
Go ahead. Okay.
I thought this was, I thought somebody was in there.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you meditate at the end of the class?
What's that?
Do you meditate at the end of the class?
Not everything. No.
Oh,
Hmm.
Good.
You know what? Can you just stand over there for a second? I just want to double check. Yeah, it's because otherwise that would have picked you
Yep.
up. I am not. Let me just.
You know what? Let me try one quick thing. It's the strangest thing.
Yeah, we've never had this problem before.
No, because it's warped. It's all warped. Pretty soon, Lauren will have to get up against all the problems.
Yeah.
possible.
All possible combinations,
Exactly.
permutations. Well, that's weird. Okay, let's see, the microphone is snowball.
Right?
For some reason, interesting, because usually as soon as you plug that in,
Yeah, let me get
it will show up on here.
Very common.
No, not at all. Only like.
Yeah, yeah, we played very good shot at the Sutras, the things.
Did you hear that little test I just did? Soon, that's working. Okay. I'm gonna do it again, it should be a little louder. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's working.
Sounds better.
Back to the video.
Still no luck, eh?
I tried a bunch of things and nope.
And this snowball, you know what I remember that I think I forgot is that one device.
Yep, but we plug in more.
But this we can get, and
Yeah.
I'm so surprised because that's how I do my weekly class, just like that.
Do you have two different accounts? That
Yeah.
maybe one,
I do have two accounts, but the other isn't. This is the one we've always.
okay.
It's the Light on Life meeting. This is the one that everybody has.
Yeah.
Let me try
Okay.
something.
Connected with this.
Yeah, let me unplug it and switch the cord from there to here and to here.
You check the back of it and all that and
Yeah, I'm checking
Mhm.
stuff as I go through the connections and all.
it's like bro, something's happening. Oh, there we go. You got it. Yeah, whatever you did, remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, now, once you get it to set up, now we can check it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to move your hand. There
Okay,
we
what do
go.
we need?
Just point it that way a little bit more towards you. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, the other way. It's backwards for some reason. Yeah, that'll catch you. You could even bring it up a little bit because it's got all this stuff in the foreground. I mean, just tilt it up is
Oh,
what,
tilt it.
yeah. There we go. Yeah, it takes a lot of the equipment out. And then it's got this. So you must have this set on mirror.
What?
See mirror?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Because it's backwards.
Well, isn't they all go that way?
If I extend my right hand, it's going left. So, oh yeah, it is mirror. That would be mirroring. Yeah. So when I had my left foot forward, every time I do that, something like that, it's because I mirror when I teach every day. And so my left side has become my right side.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but
Yeah.
it's interesting how your brain works.
Oh, yeah. It's tricky.
Okay, so all you did was unplug that and plug it back in. Hi.
What's that?
All you did was unplug that.
I switch the ends of the cord.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So while you're getting settled in, grab one of these. Looks like you guys already have it. Yeah.
Yes, very good.
Everybody attention. Safety songs. Safety songs, back.
You want to block away?
Yeah, no, I don't need them out there, Bonnie, I was gonna put them away.
Yeah, whatever you want to come.
Yeah, yeah.
It's curious. It's known that this practice of qigong with music.
And if you want to take one up, now I'll take a picture of it. Okay.
All
Because
you
right
know,
there,
this
you
profound
probably need to
practice.
Thanks. Well, to get the video, I'll print this one out so if you can still. Yeah.
Oh, I keep, yes.
There's seven sessions.
And you should go through the word. I did, I love this form of presentation. Really. Sounds nice and you just want to have one in one way.
Yeah.
We do things together, but, yeah. It's a-
Reference, it's one of the. Maybe visual.
Is that different, Aaron, from the one we picked up?
Yeah.
that. So.
Oh, snowball?
That's not, that's not on me. My mind, not what it should be. So. Okay.
Mm.
Vanessa,
Yes.
oh, Vanessa something.
Now that.
Hi, Matt. Come on in.
Said you're okay?
There you
Well,
go.
if you like the padded seat, would you like the suffering seat over there? Make the right choice. Welcome, Matt.
Are you on our mailing list?
Um. Maybe.
Maybe, okay. Well, when we're done, I'll
Okay.
get
I
you,
come here twice a week, no, once a week, 7 and, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this is a special.
This is a special mailing list.
It's on, and another lady there, right down Pat Cleary, Cleary. She wants to be added.
The mailing list,
What's that?
added to the mailing list?
Yeah, I'll give
Okay.
her email
Okay.
later, just as a reminder.
Yeah,
Mention
cool.
it.
All right.
Yes.
And then I don't remember seeing Vanessa's name on it, so.
Vanessa, she's a student. Hi, Vanessa, how's it going?
Hey, I'm all right. How are you? Sorry. There we go.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I'm glad to finally get here.
Good. Okay, we ready to go for their meditation?
Yep. I think-
Okay, so as usual, we start our philosophy section with a short meditation. And it's a specific type of meditation. And we think about no conflict, able to understand each other and sort of friendliness as we talk and respond and think through. Okay, so that's what our meditation is going to be about. And it starts right now. Just sit up straight, close your eyes and go in. Okay, there's your 5 minutes. So, but no, hi, Susan. Okay. Start.
Yeah. So we have a couple new people, Matt and online Vanessa. I don't recognize that. She's been here before. And then we also have Carol online. So why don't we introduce ourselves so that as we get into discussions,
Hi, I'm Matt.
we know who's who.
I've been practicing yoga for maybe 10 or 15 years here on Saturday mornings. I meditate every morning with a biofeedback headset connected to my phone, and I love it. Cool.
I'm Amy Ford, and I'm a teacher here.
Hi, I'm Maria. Nice to be here.
I'm Bonnie. And Susan.
Eric.
Judy.
And I'm Lauren.
I'm Tom.
Okay, we have a couple of logistical things to announce first. We revised the schedule there, and the schedule's out there if you want to grab one, Matt. And it also goes out on email. So if you got on the list, you get all this on the list. We revised the schedule so that we will finish the first chapter or PATA in June. And then in July, we're going to use that meeting as a consolidation and recap. And then as usual, we're gone during August. And then we start in September. We'll start with the second PATA. And hopefully the recap and consolidation will carry over through August into September. The other thing that we decided was instead of messing around with the fact that we meet every fourth Thursday, and that always lands on Thanksgiving and usually is interfered with Christmas. We have somebody else that just came online. So let me ask what you guys think, but we're really, especially the regulars, we're really looking at just simply moving this to the first Thursday of the month. Because every year we go through this and we finally came to our senses after probably about 5 years.
Takes us a while.
And we thought, well, maybe we'll move it to the first or second Thursday of the month, but we're really looking at the first Thursday of the month because it's easy to remember.
And it's the same for the studio. The studio, first Thursday, last Thursday, doesn't matter, because it's just a Thursday after my
Yeah.
class. So
Yeah. Think about that. We got time to make that decision, but what we'd like to do is we'll probably finalize it in July. And what we'd like to do is start in September with this new schedule. Yeah. In fact, I'll have to remember to have Michelle change the blurb, but those are the two logistical things. And then this handout, I also put on the email list. We'll get to this, but it's the diagram that comes out of Edwin Bryant's book about the sutras and all his selection of the pre-colonial commentators. That's where that came from.
say just something about this.
Pardon? Go
Can I
ahead.
say something about
Yeah.
these 25 tattvas are something you're going to run into repeatedly in yoga practice. These are the elements of the earth, the elements of life that are prakriti. Remember at the very beginning of this whole thing, we differentiated, there's two basic, and you can see it up top, Purusha and Prakriti, the very top. So Purusha is that consciousness, the witness, the true self, that thing outside of us or in us, but deeper in us. And Prakriti is all of the elements of nature out there. Everything you see is part of Prakriti. And so that's why the 25 tattvas, and so the purpose of the 25 tattvas are the definition and the contents of what Prakriti would be. You can see it, the ego, the intelligence, Maha, the five you know, the five organs of action, it's hard for me to read. So small.
Parmenides.
Yeah, the Maha.
Yeah, it's a little
That's all right.
tiny. I actually enlarged it, but anyway, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I brought them in here because I figured that would happen. Yeah.
So that's why, and as you will find out later, the reason that we look at these things is because these are the things that we meditate upon that lead us from a gross understanding to a subtle understanding. We'll touch on that a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay, last month, just to put a context or foundation to what we're going to talk about. Where'd my notes go? Talk about today. Okay. We've been talking about, Matt, what we do is we pick a book and we just walk through it and discuss it, study it. Tom will give a presentation. Nowadays we decided to go ahead and record these, so which I'll turn that on in a minute. And if you grab the schedule, you'll see the more of the context of what we do here. So the last time or maybe two times, the level that we're at is talking about, okay, now that you practice the first limbs of yoga, yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayama, the withdrawal of the senses inward, in other words, turning your energy inward. And now we're in dharana and single pointed meditation. So the assumption is you've already at least experimented with, if not, are really good at single pointed meditation. That's kind of the underlying assumption. That's not Tom's and my assumption. This is the underlying assumption in the sutras in this first chapter, which I see the first chapter as an overview, kind of lays out the roadmap, lays out the context before we get into the other padas. And where we left off was things to meditate on, chanting Om and its repetition either to yourself or out loud. I'm not going to read all of these, but breath control, you can concentrate on subtle senses of perception, concentrate on a blissful dream, and there's a pretty big list, and then concentrate on anything one chooses. But where we're headed is, with this discussion tonight, is not just picking an object of concentration. I like to see it as sort of a jumping off point as to how we concentrate on it. And it's sort of like the final staircase. If you imagine you're going down a path, down your journey, and now maybe things are getting a little steeper and we take these one steps at a time. And what Tom will talk about is the sutras broke it down into these almost excruciating they cut it with the scalpels, what way I like to say, little separate ways of seeing, concentrating on your object. We're done with talking about what objects we can concentrate on or meditate on. And now we're talking about going deeper and deeper. And I brought this forward because when I went through Bryant and the commentators' descriptions, they talked about this. And it's as if in an overview, we're moving from the bottom up. You pick something to meditate on, and essentially what they're describing is you're going into more subtle, more subtle, more subtle, more subtle to the root. And I thought this might just be a handy visual aid to talk about all these fine details now.
Let me just say one quick thing about
Yeah,
this first chapter.
I was going to turn over to you now.
Well, it's a little tricky because,
Okay.
in traditional type, at least my experience with Western literature, is it's a sequence. You start at the beginning, you sequentially go through until the end, whether it be a fiction or a nonfiction or any kind of a biography. You start at birth and end, ideally into death. So, but the sutras, isn't like that. They've, for whatever reason, they've made the most complicated chapter the first chapter. So what we're working on this time in the last few months is the most difficult chapter to understand, even for the most, I mean, not for just us, you know, basic studiers, but the real advanced studiers, they always say. In fact, Lauren and I had this discussion prior to beginning this whole thing. We were thinking about starting the whole thing with the second chapter.
You were,
I was.
so we don't quite agree.
Well,
on
when I think about it, isn't it we thinking about it?
Well, no, that's why I'm here. That's my
Right.
job.
So that was my thought about it, because as we start to move into chapter 2, you'll see that chapter 2 is like a real basic thing we can do things with. We can touch, we can study, we know what all this stuff is. But this kind of stuff in chapter 1, this different types of samadhi and meditation, I mean, this is the kind of stuff for really advanced practitioners. People have really been able to quiet their consciousness. People who really are advanced in their meditation practice. So we figured that it's sort of like a little carrot out there. They put this carrot out there, and we recognize, all right, this is the goal, chapter 1. We have to go back through chapter 2 and see all the steps to get to the goal. The steps are basically the 8 limbs of yoga, how we get there. Okay, so that's why it's a little funny, this chapter put in front. If I was editing, I'd have put it at the back, but nobody asked me 2,500 years ago.
Okay, I'm gonna hit record.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
No, that's,
Okay.
wasn't sure where you were, so.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hit.
And then I think later on when we really, I mean, Tom will give a presentation, but we can talk about it during it. And then somewhere along the line, if we're just talking about other things, I'll probably turn the recording off because the recording goes to the YCC YouTube channel. So I try to make a decision about what makes sense to record and not. All right, here we go.
Okay.
And since the mic that we usually use isn't hooked up, this is the mic. So we'll have to ask everybody if you do speak up a little bit because the sound's got to go to here.
Okay.
I didn't hear recording in process. Stop.
It's
Okay,
on,
it's
gotta
on.
be on because
Yeah.
it's paused. Okay. Okay. To really sort of understand where we're going with this stuff, we have to get a little peek about what we did last time. And what we did last time is we went through all, like Lauren was talking about, all of the possible objects of meditation one would like to put their mind on. Meditating on a desired object, steadiness of consciousness, powers that extend from the finest particle to the greatest, a transparent jewel type thing. So all of those, if we're looking at Lauren's copy or Edwin Bryan's copy of the 25 Todd posts, all of those things that we looked at previously fall under the category of prakriti, the outer things. Even thoughts are part of prakriti, this elements of nature. We don't move beyond the elements of nature until we can quiet the mind so that we're not paying attention to anything. It's an advanced state of meditation. Okay. So that's where we go. And what those kind of meditations are called are savitarka samadhi. And the savitarka samadhi, it means you're using something as they call it a seed in yoga, a bija, a seed of meditation. So if I was meditating on, say, my breath would be the seed. If I'm meditating on God, God would be the seed, that object of meditation. So this savitarka samadhi is meditation with an object of meditation involved with it. It's a complete absorption of the mind when it is free from vrittis. So vrittis are the fluctuations of the consciousness that it's like the second verse. The goal of yoga is to suspend the vrittis, the consciousness, and quiet the mind down. So what happens when we start to develop our meditation and deepen it? We become united or connected with the object of meditation. That's why it's so important to choose wisely what you meditate on, because you don't want to be associated with some negative thought or a bad deed or whatever. When you meditate, you want to pick something of a higher spiritual quality, a higher calling, so to speak. And that's because when you really get deep into your meditation, you start to sort of connect with that object of meditation as a integrated in the 8 limbs of yoga. The last 3 limbs of yoga, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, when those 3 things work together, which is savitarka samadhi, it's called samyama. It's a real practice where you start in a meditative state, you pick something of a higher quality to meditate on, and over a long period of time in a focused consciousness, you start to meld or integrate or be connected. Okay, what does that mean? Let's say that I had a crystal right here, a clear crystal that you can't see, that you could see through, that shows light, it's bright. This is the unsullied mind, the mind that isn't controlled by vrittis or oscillations. If I put something next to this clear crystal, the clear crystal reflects this object, whatever it might be. If I were to look through the crystal this way, I would see that object. If this object was, say, bright red, this crystal would turn bright red. So this crystal is the unsullied mind without vrittis, the fluctuations of the mind. And when we get to a point of that crystal clear consciousness and we meditate on something, we integrate with it. The knower becomes the known, the seen becomes the known. And this integration of the object of meditation and a clear consciousness creates a unity, a connection between that object of meditation and the consciousness. That's why it's important to choose wisely what you meditate on. Now, the other thing that has to happen to achieve this clarity of consciousness, this crystal clear mind, is we have to get rid of our gunas, those 3 important states of being, tamas, rajas, and sattvic. This, lethargy, action, and the luminosity. And these 3 gunas, as we have talked about and explored in the past, and you will run into them continuously in the yoga practice, we are in a state always of these 3 gunas: lethargy, activity, and luminosity. And what we do in the yoga practice is we work with this recipe. So we have less tamasic energy, lethargy, quiet, laziness, less super activity. You don't want to be super hyper through life, so that you get to a state of luminosity, this quiet. We call it a sattvic state of mind. So that's why, and eventually, to get even beyond this sattvic state of mind, you want to put the gunas aside. This is mentioned again and again in the sutras. It's a 4th state called gunatita, I think, gunatita. And I forget what chapter it is, but we'll run into it in the future. So when you are free of the gunas, when you have clarified the consciousness into a crystal clear object, then when you meditate on that object, you start to become integrated with it. This is how there's something that happens in the yoga practice. It has a bunch of words, but I'll call it intuitive wisdom, where because of your past experiences, because of your understanding, because of your knowledge, when you come to a certain situation, and you've got this state of mind, you intuitively make the right decision. You intuitively know the truth. You intuitively touch into that self within yourself through this deeper state of meditation. So that's another element that needs to be sort of recognized. Now, as far as integrating with this thing here, let's call it a red pin. Okay. There's a red pin. Okay. Everybody knows what a pin is. Everybody knows what the color red is. That's obvious. And it's an object. It's tangible. It's touchable. But what happens in this relationship is it not only reflects this light, it integrates. It is one with it. The consciousness no longer thinks of this as a red pin object. The consciousness is a red pin. It is an object. Or the object, the pin, is part of the consciousness. It's integrated.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like 1.41, I think, or 4.2 talks about you start with the name and the form.
Right.
You hear that term. And if you're so conscious of the name and the form, you got a ways to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 And this blend of word, meaning, and object leads the crystal to a special relationship to that pin. It's no longer just an object that the crystal is reflecting, but the two become integrated. Now, you know, it's sort of a funny analogy here, the pin in the book and stuff like that, but it has to do with the states of mind and the consciousness. And you want to clarify the state of mind so that you can be absorbed in your object of meditation. I'll give you an example. When we do pranayama, we lay down, we close our eyes, we think about the breath. And what would be the best possible scenario is when one does that pranayama practices and focuses on the breath, that they would become that would be an integrative process, that one would really be inside. So you're not just thinking about the breath, but you're sensing, feeling, perceiving, experiencing the breath. That movement from observing to integration. That's what we're talking about here. And this relationship is more than just words. It's a kind of knowing or an understanding. I mean, I can breathe and watch my breath, but understanding that breath, noticing the origin of the breath, tracing back its pathways. Where does it traverse through the body? How does the breath affect the consciousness? How does the breath affect the body? And so forth. And when you start to look at it in a more detailed fashion, more specific, you start to become more understanding of it, start to move towards that knowing of that object of meditation. And you eventually you'd like to be integrated. You want to be integrated with that object of meditation. Okay, so those two verses, 41, which is the first one, Savitarka Samadhi, the yogi realizes the knower, the instrument of knowing, and the known are one. Himself, the seer, right? The seer is always that person back looking at the objects. Like a pure, transparent jewel, he reflects an unsullied parity. So he reflects that without distortion, cleanly and clearly. Okay, then the next the verse that I talked about, 42. At this stage, called Savitarka Samadhi, which is referring back to the previous verse, the word, the meaning, and the object or content are blended and become special knowledge. So that crystal, or if we want to use the analogy of my mind and the breath, when I go start to deeply integrate with that breath, my relationship and my knowledge of that breath changes. I understand it more. I'm deeply ingrained with it. So as we study or meditate on an object of meditation, our understanding or knowledge of that object becomes more acute, more clear, and more palpable. Because that's 41 and 42. Okay. 43. And this, okay. Nirvitarka samadhi, then, the next level of samadhi is meditation without an object, without a seed. And this isn't something you can just like do. This is something that occurs to you, that happens to you after Savitarka Samadhi. So after a number of period of time, when you're doing the Savitarka Samadhi, there will come a time when you no longer need that object of meditation. And there becomes a quietness in the consciousness that doesn't need the support of an object. Absorption without conceptualization. Seeing an object without memory or preconception. Okay, everybody, when they look at the pen, if I could hide this pen and I said, there's a pen behind my hand, you all would create a mental image of it in your mind, no doubt. You all know what pens are, you know what a basic pen is. Okay, if I would show it to you, oh, that verifies what I thought a pen is. That's a pen. Well, this special knowing of absorption into this pen then is a memory or a preconception that you have in your mind. You all have a preconceived idea of what a pen is. You look at it and you say, oh, that verifies my memory or my preconception. Well, Nirvitarka Samadhi is looking at that object without that memory, without that preconception. So this is the problem we all have. We have these things called samskaras, these emotional and mental attachments that we've created in our mind that guide our decision making. If I had an emotional event when I was a child, let's say when I was 10 years old, I got afraid of snakes. You know, I heard the stories. I went hiking. My dad said, stay away from the snakes and stuff like that. So I developed a fear of those snakes. But it's not the snake's fault. The snakes, 90% of the snakes out there are going to harm me at all. They're just snakes, you know? So my perception of that snake was distorted by my previous experience in education or lack of education. So that's a samskara or a mental image. The other thing is my memory. I have a memory of a snake, right? In my mind, I can picture 5 or 6 snakes that I've seen in my life and stuff like that I associate with snakeness. But what I need to do is to follow this mental maturation. The next time I see a snake, I need to say, all right, I'm not going to have any preconceived ideas about that snake. I'm not going to assume that it's going to hurt me. I'm going to assume it's just a living being moving through the world. And that changes the way I think when I don't have my memory or my emotional attachments to those things weighing me down. So this Nirvitarka Samadhi means that you look at an object, you study an object, you meditate on an object without that baggage, that memory or preconceived idea or assumption about an object of meditation. And this again is this like crystal reflects an object without the memory. If this crystal is looking at that pen again, this crystal has no memory of this pen. It's never seen the pen before. It doesn't know what the color red is, but it reflects it in its unsullied state. It's like seeing something without the accumulated impressions that we have of that thing.
It's, I think it's also been expressed, it's like seeing something that you've never seen before for the first time. But try and do that with a everyday object. And what it does at this level of practice is it trains you to look at that specific object, not all the pens in the world you've ever encountered or anything, but it focuses your mind more when you're looking at that specific object. And I have a little quick story to tell that this is cracking me up. I don't have any artistic talent to speak of, but a friend of mine was teaching an art class, and so I went to support her. And she starts us off in black and white pen. And she said, find an object in your house and draw it. And we're working on paper like this big. Draw it, draw it, draw it. And I picked my staple puller. Because it happened to be on my desk. I thought, well, I got to get this homework done. The more I drew that staple puller and the more I studied that just in and of itself, I came to classes, I fell in love with my staple puller because it had all these curves and sharp teeth and
Well engineered.
yeah, it's an old one. It probably had Bakelite in it. Anyway, but that was an experience of looking at an object and just looking at that object for all of its characteristics and what it was and its function. And then I got drifting into its function and how it was designed and fit the hand. And this is where my meditation with it went, but it happened to be through drawing it as a way to get familiar with it. But the mind goes through that. You can take the mind through that same process with anything. And that's what they're inviting us to do here, to really, and I see it as a hopping off point where you're headed with the next view, where it's going almost beyond name and form and memory or anything, and you're looking at the object itself. And then the mind starts really going up this tree into like the essence, in my case, of a staple puller. Why do we even need one? And you could see how the meditation could take you on and on.
And that's why we do that in the practice. We don't just think about the breath. We go into detail about the breath, the quality of the breath, the flavor of the breath, the smelling of the breath, the fullness of the breath. And when you start to look like Lauren did, she looked at that staple puller from a lot of different angles and took time and studied it and probably drew it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That study is what we want to do for ourselves in the yoga practice. When we look inside, we don't want to just look inside. We want to look inside with great detail and start to study ourselves just like we would an object of meditation. And this then leads us to this integrative position within ourselves, for ourselves, about ourselves. And this is the path. We don't just look inside. We look inside with great detail, attention, and with this idea that we want to become integrated with our inner self, not shy away from that. I see this a lot. People somewhat are a little afraid to go inside because of what they might see, because of the emotion they might come into, because of the thought that they might have, and they need some encouragement. So this whole inward journey is just for us to learn about ourselves without any preconceived ideas, without those emotional attachments. They're called samskaras in yoga, or vasanas, which means tendencies. Those tendencies we have of thought patterns, we want to question and move beyond them. Okay, so those are that whole idea of accumulated impressions, getting away with the memory, the samskaras, and start to see things more clearly. Like, I'll use this analogy, I'm sure you've all heard it before, like a pond. And the pond, if you just leave it as it is and it's perfectly clear and clean, you can see all the way to the bottom, if it's clear water, of course. You can see all the way to the bottom. But once the ripples, once you start disturbing the water, you no longer can see through it. It's disturbed by the thoughts and preconceptions and impressions that we have. So what the yoga practice wants us to do is make that pond calm. No disturbances, no vrittis, so we can see inside of ourselves more clearly, that deep experience. And through that deep experience, we get to this state of nirvitarka samadhi, where we're looking inside without the confusion of memory or excessive thoughts. And I'm sure everybody in this room has done a lot of meditation, and you can start to understand how difficult it is to really calm the consciousness. It's not so easy. You really got to take a long time to do it. You got to have a good path, and you got to stick to it. And but this is all describing that path along the way.
I might add an
Absolutely.
experience I had. I've been at ponds that were like that, where you could see everything on the bottom. And it's really an interesting experience to focus on the bottom, then focus on the surface. And then focus on the reflection on the surface of like the pine tree. But if you don't have a pond handy, I've done the same thing with windows. Can look at a window, focus on the window. Now, if the window's a little bit dirty, it helps, which is what mine is like. And then I look at the surface of it, or maybe what's reflecting on it. Then I look through the window. So that's seeing with the eye, but you can do the same thing with the mind's eye, is have it look here and then here and then here and then back. So it's an interesting exercise to do, to see if you can shift from the visual seeing to your mind's eye consciousness moving deeper and deeper.
Okay. So that was 43, and I'll repeat that. That 43 is, I'll say it in English. In Nivitarka Samadhi, Samapati is a kind of, what would you define Samapati as earlier today, Lauren?
It's a way of, I have it in here, but it's a way of seeing. In other words, the commentators distinguish between samapati and samadhi. They sound very similar. And I only caught this. I've been through Bryant's book twice now. I only caught it this time. Whereas samadhi is the overall, you might say, overarching movement of the consciousness deeper and deeper or higher up. And samapati, as they described it, is, let's see, where did it go? It's the way of seeing, or the steps of seeing. I'm not, sorry, I'm kind of
Okay.
failing this, but I'll find it and then
Yeah.
circle back to me.
Yeah, okay.
I have it written down
And
anyway.
on 144, the next sutra, the contemplation of subtle aspects is similarly explained as deliberate, savikara samapati, or non-deliberate, nirvikara samapati. Okay,
Found it.
go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep following. Samadhi, understood in terms of the goal of yoga, i.e. 1.2, to still the fluctuations of the mind. Samapati is the complete identification of the mind with the object of meditation. Samapati occurs only in the context of the broader samadhi. That's Bryant. And I think that's Bryant with all of his knowledge and education. That's Iyengar. So let's see. This is around page 143. Anyway, I copied it out of the book, but it's like a subtle subset. And let me say it again. It's samapati is the complete identification of the mind with the object, whereas samadhi is understood in terms of the goal of stilling the fluctuations. So this is a subset of it, for what that's worth.
Okay, so 44. The contemplation of subtle aspects is similarly explained as deliberate, savikara samapati, or non-deliberate, nirvikara samapati. Okay, so savikara is the meditation where you meditate on subtle objects. Okay, what's a subtle object? My ego is a subtle object.
Right here.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right on the list.
Yeah, they're right on the list.
Yeah, I'm sorry, keep going.
So my intelligence is a subtle object. I can meditate on that. The elements of nature are a subtle objects. So these subtle objects are the objects without form or we call it rupa, that quality. Okay. So those are the elements of nature, the prakriti. That's why Lauren pulled this out. It shows everything under prakriti is savikara meditation, savikara samapati, that meditation with the seed. It's the same idea as the samadhi. Then the nirvikara is meditation without these objects, free of memory, free of past experience, free of past impressions. When this happens, pure bliss and the self, the pure self, emerge. So it's not like I sit down and I say, all right, I want to meditate on my pure self. That's not the way it works. The way it works is you have to go through these elements of Prakriti. First of all, you start off with gross objects. If you're going to take a meditation class, you want to start off by meditating on gross objects, stuff you can palpitate, something, something I can see, something I can feel, something I can touch. And then as you mature in your meditative state, your meditation would like to move towards more subtle objects, more and more subtle objects. The difference between objects, meditating on an object which has form and stuff to a meditation on an unformed object is the movement from gross to subtle. So that's how we want our meditation to work. Until we get to this point of nirvikara, where meditation without these objects. Now, it's not like I sit down and say, I want to meditate without these objects. It doesn't work like that. It has to come to you. It does not something you could do. It's the difference between the sixth and seventh limb of yoga, dharana and dhyana. Dharana is meditation, is contemplation, is looking at something closely. Dhyana is meditation, when that object of contemplation turns into a stable meditative state. So, but that transfer from dharana to dhyana isn't something that you can really palpably do. It sort of occurs as a result of your maturation as a meditator. So it comes down to this. You start with gross objects and slowly, slowly, slowly meditate to more subtle objects. When you get to the state where you're highly integrated with those objects, those subtle objects, at some point in the future, then you might move on to a meditative state unsullied by the objects, just a quiet consciousness, which then you've done it. You're gone, you're there, you're in samadhi, you've got the big kahuna, you recognize your Purusha, the unmanifest self. So that's that was 44. Okay. The subtlest, this is 45. The subtlest level of nature, Prakriti, is consciousness. So if you go to this diagram that Lauren created for us, way up top is Prakriti, where the arrows come down from. That's this a state of complete quieting, cessation of the mind, quieting of the consciousness. So that's where your goal is. Then, and that's the most subtle cosmic intelligence.
In fact,
Mahat.
yeah, okay, you're there, where it says Bhukti, but Prakriti, if you can't read it, it says the gunas, sattvas, rajas, tamas, unmanifest primordial matter, the witnessed. So I like to see it, in my view of this, it's like taking the entire cosmos and converting it all into energy and just smoothing it out evenly. Because we know that energy and matter are interchangeable. We know time and space are really interlaced. It's just a construct we put on it. But if you go to the atomic, subatomic form of an object, pretty soon you're meditating on the smallest essence, I think is the way they describe it, of the particular object, including these ideas, you might say, of the ego, the manas, the mind, and the buddhi consciousness is something to meditate on. So it's telling us that there's really no end of what you can meditate on. And as you approach Prakriti, then this is the jumping off point. Then I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of you.
Sure.
Then you can meditate on Purusha. And that's a whole nother world.
Okay, so 45. The subtlest level of nature is consciousness. When consciousness dissolves in nature, it loses all marks and becomes pure. Okay, what does this mean? Think of it like this. You've got, okay, so let's call me myself. I'm a self. And this is the small s self. But within me, within all of you, there's a big S self, the universal consciousness, the Atma, that thing we connect to on a higher plane. Okay. The big self, that Atman within me, never changes. It always is, it always will be. That big self within me is the thing that transmigrates from soul to soul to soul in the reincarnation process. You can believe it or not believe it, but this is the philosophy behind it. That part of me that is part of universal consciousness will never die. It moves on and on and on, life after life after life. But the small self, this physical self, it's going to pass on. Just like anybody who dies, billions of people have died before, I'm going to be just like all of them. My little self is going to die. Okay. The big self never changes, but that little self changes due to nature's qualities. So these nature's qualities are the gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattvic, the lethargy, the activity, and the luminosity. So each of those things are mixed into the small self. When I go beyond those gunas, which is an advanced state of samadhi or meditation, I'm no longer tainted or influenced by those elements within me, those qualities of nature. When the I, the small self, is quieted by yoga practices, Prakriti has reached its end. My relationship with Prakriti and all of the branches of it ends. And now I have a relationship with Parusha, that universal big self that still lives within me. So I move through all of the accumulated baggage that I as an individual have gotten in my small self, and through the yogic practices, I sort of like weed myself out of all of this stuff in my mind and consciousness and awareness so that I could see the true self within. That's where all of the yoga practices want to take us. From the small self to understanding that big self within us, Purusha, the consciousness, the big S self. So that's the path. That's what we want to do. Move beyond the small self to the big self, the big S self. Okay. The state of, now I'm moving on to 46. The states of samadhi.
We were stopping at 45 by.
I thought we were doing 46.
Oh,
Okay.
but go ahead.
You got something to say about 45? Boy?
Well, the only thing I was going to say was that a long time ago, I heard the term man is God looking at himself. You could substitute other words. Man is Purusha looking at himself. And that's what Tom's talking about. It's, I struggle with the analogy of the mirror, but it's using your consciousness to look in your mental mirror to see only and be absorbed only by the Atman Purusha in you. That's, and don't forget the last pada is essentially uses the word freedom. Where are we headed and why are we doing all this for the ultimate freedom? I'll just kind of drop that right there, but anyway.
Okay, let's just finish with 46.
Yeah.
Okay, 46. The states of samadhi described in the previous sutras are dependent upon a support or seed, and they are termed sabija. This is basically what I said earlier, that all of those things of nature, prakriti, are objects of nature. And when we meditate on them, they are considered seed. And you know, I don't know anybody in a meditative state where they don't need a seed of some sort. That's a highly evolved state of meditation. It's a highly evolved state of consciousness. So we just got to keep working with our seeds. But what this kind of work should sort of guide us to is when we choose what we want to meditate on, whether it be an image, whether it be a word, whether it be a phrase, whether it be our breath, whether it be our ego, we want to be wise. We don't want to just pick something haphazard because that's going to lead our mind down a not so beneficial road. It might not hurt me, but it's not leading me to that higher level of understanding, consciousness. So that's why in the previous verses, they were talking about meditating on enlightened sages, meditating on the word Om, meditating on higher states of consciousness. So this is giving us a little warning. At this stage of our practice, we want to be selective and discerning about what we choose to put our mind on, because it'll lead us to an integration. I don't want to be led to an integration with a silly pin. I'd rather meditate on something with a deeper residual mental image in my mind. So the pen, it's a beautiful pen, don't get me wrong. It's just one of billions. Go ahead.
It's plastic.
It's class.
Let's see, what was I gonna say? I got distracted. It'll come back to me.
Okay. So any thoughts, questions, ideas, concepts, remember experiences? Have anybody?
Oh, that's what I was gonna talk about.
Go ahead.
So when we first started this, I think it was in this, when we first started the discussion on the Yoga Sutras, somewhere along the line, we talked about that most people can say they've had an experience where in today's terms, they call it zenning out. You're doing something and you get absorbed in it and you lose track of all time and space. And it could be anything. I mean, I used to get that pulling weeds, earning money in college of pulling weeds for people. I would
You earned
just,
money for that?
yeah,
Wow, what a good.
yeah. It wasn't much.
Never paid me to.
It wasn't. Well, I used to pull weeds for my folks all the time. But anyway, my point is that don't despair. That's what I want to say. We've had a lot of us, if not all of us, have had moments where we become one with whatever it is that we're doing. And I think that's a taste of what we're talking about here. But instead of it randomly happening, we learn to focus our consciousness and to go forward in a deliberate manner. And those were just like little tasters of what this practice could be. So if it seems remote and esoteric, I would argue that no, this kind of practice, of course, at that level is, but we get glimpses of it. Every once in a while, we'll get absorbed in doing something. I mean, it could be washing the dishes. It could be anything. Driving. Okay.
But again, you want to be selective.
Yeah. I mean, you could drive up I-5 for an hour and not realize what you just did, right?
Or
you could read a book and get absorbed in a book and totally lose consciousness of the world around you.
Or you can get in your body with your consciousness, do an action and observe it, which is the whole basis of the physical asana practice. You do something. It's not just to stretch muscles. You guys, all you have been in my class know all that. It's not about stretching muscles. That's a secondary or third category. Your real goal in the asana is this absorption, this deep integrative conscious observing of your inner state. And so just like when I teach, I try to teach in such a way that I get people to go inside and break those inner vision up into more detailed perspectives. So I don't just think of the big toe. I think of the inner big toe, the outer big toe, the front of the big toenail, the big toe print, the space behind the big toe. And when you start to look at it in more detail, it's like Lauren's analogy with the staple. The more detailed she looked at that object of meditation or object of just observance, the more she integrated with it, she understood it. So likewise with myself, if I'm meditating on myself in my asana practice, I want to go deeper. I want to really check out all of the details. When I think of the pranayama, I want to think of the back of the lung, the front of the lung, the sides of the lung, the top of the lung, the movement of breath within the lung. How does that breath affect my overall body? What does my consciousness do when I look at that? So you see how I'm breaking it up into a bunch of details. Therefore, you're able to see it more clearly, just like these objects of meditation. That's the whole idea behind, well, it's not the whole idea. It's one of the many ideas behind the practice of asana.
The discipline.
Yeah, the discipline.
It's the discipline that
And, you know,
carries over.
I run into people a bit afraid to go inside of themselves for whatever reason. I have a fear of an injury. I have a fear, oh, I know what I'm doing, Tom. Just go pay attention to somebody else. I say, no, that's not how this works. I'm the teacher. Please do this. I'm not like that so much anymore. But if somebody does that to me, it tells me about them. It tells me that that person is not willing to do the work. They're not really willing to go inside. And that's cool. I'll just look at that and say, well, that's a project that I'll continue to work with and try to get that going with that person. But these are some of the obstacles, the samskaras, or these memories. I have a memory of a shoulder injury. Therefore, I never want to bring my arm above my shoulder. That memory is the problem. It's not the shoulder. The shoulder can do fine, but my memory of pain limits the movement. See, that's an idea that limits my ability to move the body. So you see that, and we confront it in myself. I have a fear of hurting my knee. So I'm very careful about how I work in my asana. I'm very careful how I sit up there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I probably shouldn't be sitting like this because of my knee. But the point is, my memory, my samskaras, my impressions of that knee limit my practice, limit my understanding. So if I can get away from being obsessed with the pain or not pain or swelling or not swelling of my knee, I'll be able to do my practice more cleanly and clearly without that past impression or that samskara or that memory. That's what we're battling ourselves, is ourselves. Our own minds are our biggest limitations. So what we need to do is look at that mind and say, well, this is a memory that I don't need. That's an impression I don't need. Oh, I had that impression when I was 10 years old. I no longer have to think about snakes like that. Or, oh, the teacher said, raise my arm above my head. Oh, the shoulder doesn't hurt. What a revelation. You know, we have to. I also see a lot of people who are afraid to do stuff because they fear they might hurt themselves. I fear that I'm scared of that stuff. Well, you know, that's just a feeling. That's not reality. Do it and see. Don't listen to yourself. Do it and see. So our own selves are our problem.
The way one of the ways learned to see all of this is my joke. So I teach online, and the people I teach know I joke around with about yoga a lot. One of my jokes is that if yoga is anything, it's a way of seeing. But I'm talking about seeing with the mind's eye, with the consciousness. And one of the things I found that's very helpful, very practical and helpful, is once you develop a way of seeing things as they truly are. For example, if you have any issues with your ego beating you up, for example, verbally, and you start seeing the ego for what it is, it neutralizes it. It doesn't make it go away, it doesn't kill it, but it completely neutralizes it, gives you freedom from that. You can now choose to either go with that trigger and triggers that come out of samskaras, go with the trigger. And I'm really kind of referring to things like addictions, whether it's shopping, gambling, or whatever, books, hoarding, you name it. But once you can see what's going on, because you've developed an ability to see with your mind's eye, then you can start gaining these freedoms. You don't have to wait till chapter 1.4, whatever, 5, to get that freedom. You can get it sooner, but it does take the work. But I can say I mean, at least this one person in 8 billion people have been through this, where I can now look down on a lot of my ego and say, yeah, I know your tricks. Or even past samskaras that you inherited from past generations. Well,
Karma, the thing from previous life.
yeah, it's seeing karma for what it
My
is.
actions
Yep.
in when I was younger affect my life now. My beliefs that I had that I was younger. So the those kleshas are those obstacles, right? Kleshas are asmita, which is the ego is the obstacle. Now, the first obstacle is ignorance.
Yeah, because
Avidya.
that's the root of all of the stuff.
All of this. So these kleshas, we've looked at them before, but these kleshas are 5 obstacles that prevent us along the path of yoga. The first one is avidya, which means ignorance. Okay, what kind of ignorance? The ignorance is I identify with the small self rather than the big self. I think I'm this body, this Tom, this person, but that's ignorant. The true me is that big self within me. It's not me. So that's the ignorance that they refer to in the kleshas. You're ignorant when you think you are you. Your outer form is you. Your inner form is the real you. Okay, that's the first obstacle. The second obstacle is asmita, which means the ego. So if I attach myself too closely with my own ego, I think that I am Tom. I'm not that. I'm this body. I'm these clothes. I'm this person. But that's not. That's an identification with the ego, which is again an ignorance. Then the next 2 are attraction and aversion. So these tie into our samskaras. Because of my life and what I've done, I'm attracted to certain things and I'm averse to other things. Well, that's just my life that did that. If I step back and have a more objective view, I'm no longer tainted by those attractions. If you do the ice cream story. This is a good spot for the ice cream story. Go ahead.
When we did Light on Life, we spent a little time reading the section that Iyengar put in there because it's universal about the ice cream. And the story goes, you get off of work, you're tired, you're hungry, you eat some pizza on the way home, and then you get home and there's that refrigerator with the freezer in it, and you open the door and there's the ice cream. And you're deciding whether or not to eat some ice cream on top of the pizza. And so he describes this script where your ego is saying, yeah, well, you deserve that. You worked hard today. And your booty conscious intelligence mind said, yeah, but you've done this for the last 5 days. And before you know it, you got to buy new clothes because you're putting on all this weight. And it go back and forth. And really what he's saying here is your higher intelligence can listen to this script and then choose wisely, which is to close a door and walk away from the ice cream.
So that's that attraction. You might be attracted to something, but your intelligence says, well, if I look at that thing with clarity, I can choose it because I want it, but I don't want to choose it because it's a preconceived habit.
Yeah, it's just a trigger.
Yeah.
Or your ego is telling you, well, you deserve this and blah, 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 you've worked hard and it'll taste so good and a million other reasons why you should have it, while your intelligence is saying, don't listen to him, listen to me. You walk away from the temptation. You don't need it.
And then
when you, the last part of the story is that when you walk away and let's say you go to sleep, you wake up the next morning, it's like, oh, I'm so happy that I just closed the door and didn't get into the ice cream. The next thing you know, who's taking credit for all that? Your ego. It's taking credit for, I mean, you pick any object, any temptation, and it's the same story. It's universal.
and then with the aversion, It's like with the snake. I'm averse to approaching or touching that snake because I have an idea that a snake might hurt me or that they're not great creatures or they're reptiles, you know. But that's just my own preconceived idea. You and I'm sure everybody here knows people that are perfectly comfortable with reptiles. Walk up to that snake, put it around its arm. I know a lady who's got snakes as pets, you know. So that aversion to the snake is one of those obstacles that I have or that one might have towards not letting these ideas taint my perception. So that's the first of those kleshas. The last klesha is very interesting to me. It's called a binivesha, and that means fear of death. One's biggest obstacle in this spiritual path, as it concerns the sutras and yoga philosophy, is we fear death. Why is that an obstacle? Because we never die. If we recognize that true self within us that never dies, I don't have to fear death. The only thing that will die is this physical form. This true me will never die. This is the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita, right? We went through the Bhagavad Gita. It's about, Arjuna and Krishna are there in the battlefield. And Arjuna says, Krishna, I can't kill all these people. They're my kith and my kin. They're my cousins and my teachers. And I'm going to go into battle with them. I give up. I can't fight these people. I can't kill these people. And Krishna says, baloney, you're not killing them. You're just killing their bodies. Their true selves will live after you kill them or through battle. Or if you die, you will not die. Your body will die, not your true self. So that's why this fear of death we have is misplaced. It's because we're so attached to this ego physical self, our mind stuff. We're so attached. And this is the big obstacle in yoga. How do we see that we are not who we are? It's really tough. It's really hard to make that mental switch and change. That's why it takes years of meditation for some of us. For some people, they're out of the womb with this. But most people, everybody I know, everybody that I've studied with and read, have taken years to understand this, study this, practice this, meditate on this for this illumination. But it takes a tremendous letting go of the ego. So those kleshas, you can couple them with the karmas. The karmas are the things from past lives and this life. This whole meditation thing, the nirvitarka samadhi, means that these kleshas and these karmas and these gunas and these past impressions are moved beyond. You're beyond that. And that beyond that is starting to see this Purusha inside, the real you inside. But you got to go through all the dribble. You got to clean out all the crap to get to the real thing inside. Go ahead.
Let me take a second and just see if there's anybody online that wants to unmute. If you've got any questions or comments. Okay. I know it takes a minute sometimes to unmute, but if you do, just raise your virtual hand and I'll catch it and make sure you get the floor.
So I hope that through this, and this is my wish, that through this study of these texts, the Bhagavad Gita, the Light on Life, that we start to get some clarity about what this practice is really about. Not about what popular media says yoga is, not about what our preconception might be, not what Joe Schmo told me about 10 years ago, and I've got this impression. No, we start to clean off the residual impressions that we have of this practice and see it for what it truly is. Let's face it, in our culture today, you got yoga smoking pot over the, in some, they go to burn fit, they smoke pot. They've got goat yoga. They've got wine yoga. They got beer yoga. They've got all these yogas. And to me, that's just a bastardization of a wonderful subject, but it's what people want to do. So my goal is to educate myself and others as to the reality of this practice rather than the illusions that the Western civilization have layered on this practice. And it's going to be a lifetime job, trust me. What's that? Turn up? Oh, okay.
No, I don't know what that
Okay.
is. That's
So,
something else.
any thoughts, ideas, questions? What your own thoughts? Doesn't even have to be about this stuff. What is you guys where are you guys in this evolution of understanding yoga as a physical practice to make the leap to understand the yoga practice as a spiritual practice? That's how I look at it. I mean, that's what I've always wanted to make it.
That's where I started.
Okay.
I'll say that that's what got me interested back in whenever 1960 something or another,
Mhm.
50 something, 60 something years ago, was the promise of being able to see things. And yeah, I was able to see some things, so it kept me going.
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah.
leave it at that. But
Yeah.
I was amazed at the power of it.
And this is somewhat a mirror of what's described here. They say, the sutra says, all right, take an object and look into more detail of that object. Break that object apart. Take the puller that you were working with, the whatever you call it, the stapler puller.
Oh,
You take that and you look into more detail. It's
Yeah.
what we're doing with the yoga practice. We're looking at this yoga practice through the lens of some very bright people, and we're breaking it apart and looking at the details and getting a clearer picture of it rather than some distorted view of, I got to equate it to this. So I'm talking to this person, and they said, "Oh, such and such happened," and I said, "Oh, where'd you read that?" "Oh, it was a headline of a newspaper article." "Well, what the article say?" "Oh, I didn't read the article. I just read the headline." It's the same thing. Unless you read the article and dive deep into it, you have a very shallow understanding of that topic. It's the same thing with the yoga practice. Unless you dive deep into it, and I'm talking years, perhaps decades, unless you dive deep into it, you're not going to fully understand it. Not that your understanding is wrong. It's not wrong. It's just not deep. So that's my wish for this teaching institution, that we look deeper and explore deeper and go deeper so that we know what this is about rather than some preconceived idea or what we read in the paper or a headline someplace or a Facebook post. None of that stuff is real. This is real.
one of the things that we talked about in preparation for tonight was that even though this level of meditation is super refined, the fact that it's still in the books, it's still talked about, say, by Edwin Bryant in his book and by Prashant Iyengar and so on, that people have gone there. It's not just something they made up to fill the pages of the book.
Yeah.
So
Path
some
that
people
trod.
have gone there and done this. They've just out in front ahead of us. So again, my message is don't give up, don't be discouraged, just practice, keep practicing. And the more you practice, it's not just, it's understanding, which is why I think it's worth reading these parts, but it's the experiencing of it.
And you can look at these things as maps. This is a map of how you want to practice. If you do, these are from people who've been there. Iyengar and Bryant have been there. When you practice what is taught as clearly, as cleanly as possible, described through these texts and other texts too, not exclusive to these. That one over there is pretty good, Light on Yoga. But the whole point is, when you follow this map, it takes you someplace. As you traverse life and study the map, the clarity of the subject matter that you study starts to get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer as you proceed. I say that because I've done it. I started out ignorant, and I could still consider myself ignorant, but I'm less ignorant than I was before. Let's stick with that.
Same here.
Okay, anything else, Lauren?
No. No.
Okay, well,
Anybody
unless
else?
anybody else has anything to say, we'll do our 5-minute meditation.
All right, anybody? Okay.
Okay, let's go. 5 minutes starting right now.